Hey everybody, this is Herc Magnus and welcome to another whiteboard session. Today we are going to talk about how to measure the power of a domain, and there's three main aggregators that typically people like to use when they're measuring the power of a domain. Okay, those are Moz, Ahrefs, and Majestic. Okay, so in the Rank and Rent course teachings, when I'm teaching you guys how to analyze the competition of a domain, we're primarily going to be using Moz metrics, okay? But all of these are basically similar. They have a little bit of a different name, but we're going to focus on Moz for this and teach you how to measure both the power of a domain as well as the power of a page, and each one of them actually has a different metric to do that. So Moz, when they're measuring the power of a domain, they're actually taking a look at all the pages of that domain and all the links pointing into all the pages on the domain, and they're measuring the overall authority, the DA, okay? That's called DA, domain authority, okay? So they have two. They're measuring everything. They're measuring all the links pointing at all the pages and coming up with a score of a DA. So something like Facebook, which has millions of groups, millions of pages, and millions of links pointing everywhere, they have a DA of like a 99. They're extremely powerful. Google would be another extremely powerful site. Twitter, all these big social brands that have users submitting content, creating new URLs and pages, and then everyone's linking to everything, have really high DAs. The other metric that Moz will look at when they're looking at a specific page, so if you had a site abc.com, but then you had a page on that site, not the actual domain, but just a page, so abc.com/page1, okay, to measure the power of that, they use something called PA, or page authority, okay? And that's just a little bit different. Now what they're doing is they're saying we only are concerned with the links that are actually pointing to that page. How many of them are there, and how quality of links. So you kind of get two scores for each property of any URL or any domain. You get a domain authority score, it measures all links pointing to all pages, and a page authority score, it only measures the links pointing to the specific page. With Ahrefs, it's the same thing. They do things in the same manner. They just call it a little bit of a different thing. So the domain profile is called the DR, okay, or the domain rating, and then the specific URL or the specific page, they call it UR, okay, or a URL rating. Now, Ahrefs and Moz are very, very similar in that fashion. Majestic is slightly different, okay? If you ever go to Majestic, you'll see something called TF and CF, okay, instead of domain rating and URL rating. TrustFlow is a measure of the amount and quality of links coming into the page and how powerful they are. Citation flow is kind of a measure of the number of links that are pointing at a page. So TrustFlow, how powerful, how quality are the links. Citation flow, how many links are actually coming. And they don't do it on a domain or a page rating. They do it on a specific URL. So the home page is a different page than, you know, the page 1 or page 2 or page 3. Each one is going to have its own set of trust flow and citation flow. Typically with Ahrefs and Moz, the domain authority or the domain rating will typically be the same even if you're looking at a specific URL. However, with Majestic, the trust flow is going to change because they're only looking at individual items of a website rather than as at the website as a whole. So I'm not going to talk really much about Majestic or Ahrefs. We're going to focus on Moz simply because Moz has a free toolbar that we're going to be using that I teach you how to analyze the top 10 for your keyword. If you put in a keyword in Google and you go look at the top 10 sites that are ranking, we're going to be looking at the DA and the PA of each one of those. So that's just a quick lesson on how to measure the power of a domain in the three main aggregators. In the next whiteboard session, I'm going to talk about something called the bucket of water theory. And it's basically what creates DA and what creates PA. How do you get a domain or a page to get authority and power? So how do I create domain authority on my domain? How do I create page authority on my page? So go to the next whiteboard session and look for the bucket of water theory. And in that, we're going to focus on Moz and just look at how sites send domain authority and page authority, as well as how they receive them.